My family has two kids, Nora, the older one, and me. I need you to understand that before anything else because it explains everything. Nora was the one who got the college fund conversations at dinner. Nora was the one whose report cards went on the fridge. I got decent grades, stayed out of trouble, worked part-time at 16, and none of it ever registered with my parents Damien and Kimberly. I was just there, the second kid who existed in the background of Nora's highlight reel. Quick context so you get the full picture. When I was 20, my mom's mother passed and left her house to Kimberly. It was a three-bedroom place, paid off, decent neighborhood. My parents had been renting a two-bedroom apartment for years, and this house changed everything for them. They moved in. Nora got her own room set up as a guest suite for when she visited from college, and I got told I could stay in the basement if I helped with the property taxes and maintenance. I was working full-time at a warehouse by then, so I agreed. For 3 years, I paid a chunk of those taxes, replaced the water heater myself, fixed the fence twice, redid the bathroom tile. My name was on nothing. I was basically a tenant who also happened to be their son. When I was 23, I started seeing Candace. She was the first person who ever told me that the way my family treated me was not normal. I remember sitting at her apartment one Thursday after Thanksgiving and telling her how I had spent the holiday alone because my parents forgot to tell me they moved dinner to Nora's boyfriend Ian's place. Candace asked me point blank why I kept showing up for people who kept forgetting I existed, and I did not have an answer. But I was not ready to hear it yet. I stayed another 2 years in that basement. The thing that finally cracked it open was my 28th birthday. My parents threw Nora a massive 30th birthday party 2 months earlier, catered food, decorations, invited extended family and friends, the whole thing. For my 28th, they did nothing. Not a card, not a text, not a mention at dinner. Candace brought me a cake and my mom walked into the kitchen, saw it, and asked whose birthday it was. I told her it was mine. She said, "Oh, right," and walked back to the living room where she was helping Nora pick out furniture for her new apartment, which Damien was helping her furnish, by the way, while I was still paying into their property taxes. I moved out 3 months later, got my own apartment with Candace on the other side of town. I stopped paying their taxes, stopped fixing things, stopped showing up for holidays where I was just furniture. And honestly, for about 4 years, they barely noticed. Nora would text me maybe twice a year, always when she needed something. "Can you help Ian move some boxes? Can you look at mom's car because the engine light is on?" Never "how are you?" Never "let's get dinner." Never anything that was not a request for labor. I want to be clear about something because people always ask. This was not neglect from struggle or hardship. Damien had a stable job. Kimberly managed their finances fine. They had resources and attention and energy. They just allocated all of it to Nora. Ian became part of the family instantly when he started dating her. Got invited to every event, every holiday, while I had been their son for 3 decades and still got treated like the help. The reason was simple, and Kimberly actually said it once to Candace at a family barbecue when she thought I could not hear. She said Nora was like her, driven and ambitious, and that I was more like my dad's side, quiet and content, and that quiet people do not need the same attention. That was her justification. I was too quiet to need acknowledgement. So when my 34th birthday came around last October, and Candace sent me a screenshot from Nora's Instagram story showing a birthday party at my parents' house with balloons and a cake, and the caption "family time," and I was not invited and did not even know about it, I was not surprised. I was angry, but I was not surprised. I drove over there on a Sunday afternoon, walked into the kitchen where they were cleaning up leftover food, and asked why I was not told. Nora rolled her eyes and told me I was so forgettable they did not think I would notice. Kimberly said it was a small thing, and they did not want to make it a big deal. Damien said nothing. Ian was on the couch watching football and did not even look up. I stood there for about 10 seconds. Then I told them, "Sure, thanks for reminding me where I stand," and I left. But here is the thing, Reddit. I did not go home and cry. I did not call Candace and vent. I went home and I sat down at my kitchen table and I started making a list. Because for 6 years, I had been keeping track of every single thing I contributed to that household. Every tax payment, every repair receipt, every hour of labor. Candace thought I was keeping it for emotional processing, but I was keeping it because I knew this day was coming. I had been waiting for it. And now Nora's little comment gave me exactly what I needed, which was the last bit of clarity that these people were never going to change and it was time to stop waiting and start acting. What I did over the next 3 weeks is something none of them expected, and the 31 missed calls I got last Thursday, with Kimberly screaming into voicemail and Damien's voice cracking and Nora sending paragraph after paragraph on every platform she could find. That was just the beginning. I will update soon. I need to organize my thoughts because this gets complicated fast. Alright, so I want to talk about the thing that makes this story different from every other "my family neglected me" post. Because there are thousands of those. And most of them end with, "So I went no contact and I'm healing." Which is valid, absolutely. Good for you. But this man did something that most people in his position never do. He kept receipts for 6 years. Not metaphorical receipts. Actual receipts, bank statements, labor logs. This dude was running a whole accounts receivable department out of his kitchen while his family was running a Nora fan club out of the house he was maintaining. And the thing that really gets under my skin is Kimberly's whole philosophy. Quiet people don't need the same attention. That is not a parenting style. That is a resource allocation strategy. She literally looked at her 2 children and said, "This one generates returns. This one is maintenance staff." She turned motherhood into a portfolio and put all her equity into one stock. And Damien? Damien is the silent investor who just signs off on everything. He's been co-signing his wife's emotional neglect for 3 decades with the energy of a man who nods at the waiter when his wife orders for the table. I also need to shout out Candace because without her, this man would still be in that basement replacing pipes and getting texted twice a year to do free labor. Candace saw the Matrix and tried to unplug him. And even she had to wait years for him to be ready. That's patience and love working together. Now the 31 missed calls at the end? That's the sound of people who thought they had a free employee for life and just got a resignation letter. Update 1. All right, I am back. A lot of you asked me to keep going, so here it is. And to the people in my DMs telling me to just cut them off and move on, I hear you. But you need to understand something. Moving on is what I did for 6 years. Moving on is what let them keep treating me like I did not exist. Moving on is exactly what they were counting on me doing again. Not this time. So after I left my parents' house that Sunday, I spent the next week going through everything I had saved. Every receipt from materials I bought for repairs on that house, every bank transfer showing my share of property taxes from ages 20 to 23, every text where Kimberly or Damien acknowledged what I paid or what I fixed. 3 years of contributions to a house I had zero ownership of. I was not doing this to be petty. I was doing this because my grandmother left that house to Kimberly, and Kimberly had been telling extended family for years that she and Damien maintained it themselves. That was a lie, and I had the proof. The first thing I did was call my uncle, Kimberly's brother. His name is not relevant, but he lives 2 states over and he was close with my grandmother. I had his number because he used to check in on me once a year around the holidays. One of the few relatives who remembered I existed. I called him on a Wednesday evening and I told him everything. Not in a dramatic way, just facts. I told him I had spent 3 years paying into the house that Grandma left, that I had receipts for every dollar, and that despite all of that I was never included in any family decisions, never acknowledged, and was literally not invited to my own birthday party. He was quiet for a long time. Then he asked me if I had ever told my grandmother's estate lawyer about my contributions. I told him no because I was 20 years old when it started, and I did not know any better. He told me to hold on to everything, and that he would make some calls. Now here is where things started to shift. While I was organizing all of this, Candace told me something that made everything worse. She had been holding on to it for a while because she did not want to add fuel to the fire. But after the birthday party situation, she decided I needed to know. Back in August, 2 months before my birthday, Nora had reached out to Candace on Instagram asking if Candace wanted to pitch in for a surprise party for Nora's boyfriend, Ian. They were planning a surprise birthday party for Ian at my parents' house in November, and Nora was reaching out to people to contribute money and help decorate. Candace showed me the messages. Nora had sent her a whole list of tasks and a request for $50 toward catering for Ian. My sister was organizing a catered surprise party for her boyfriend of 4 years in my parents' home. The same house where my actual birthday was apparently so irrelevant, they threw a small gathering without even telling me. Candace never responded to Nora's messages, and Nora never followed up, which tells you how much Nora actually cared about including us in anything. So now, I had 2 things burning in me simultaneously, the house situation and the Ian party situation. And a third thing was developing that I did not expect. The following Monday, Damien texted me. First time in weeks. He did not mention the birthday, did not ask how I was, nothing like that. He asked me if I could come by on Saturday to look at the furnace because it was making a noise, and the last time a repair company came out they charged $400. Let me just sit with that for a second. My father, who could not be bothered to invite me to my own birthday, was texting me to come fix his furnace for free. And the thing is, a year ago I would have done it. I would have driven over there, spent 3 hours crawling around in the utility closet, and then sat at their kitchen table while they talked about Nora's vacation plans. But I was done being the family handyman who was too quiet to deserve a seat at the table. I texted him back and told him no. Just no. No explanation, no excuse, no, sorry, I am busy, just no. He did not respond for 2 days. Then Kimberly texted me asking what was wrong with me and why I was being difficult. Because now they had to call a repair company and it was going to cost them. I told her that sounded like their problem. She sent me 4 messages back to back about how family helps family and how I was being selfish and ungrateful after everything they had done for me. I read every word and then I typed out exactly what they had done for me. I listed the Thanksgivings I spent alone. I listed the birthday they forgot. I listed the 3 years of property tax payments. I listed the repairs. I listed Ian's catered birthday party compared to my non-existent one. I sent it as one long message, and for the first time in my life, I did not soften a single word. Kimberly's response was exactly what I expected. She told me I was keeping score, and that keeping score in a family is toxic. She told me Nora needed more support because Nora had bigger goals and more responsibilities. She actually typed that out. She told me I had always been low maintenance, and that was a compliment, not an insult, and that I should be grateful they never had to worry about me. I screenshot every single message, not because I was building a legal case, because I wanted a record of who these people really were when the mask came off. My uncle called me back that Friday. What he told me changed the entire trajectory of what I was planning, and it involved the house, Nora, and a detail about my grandmother's original wishes that Kimberly had apparently been hiding from everyone for over a decade. I will get into that in the next update because, honestly, I am still processing the fallout from what happened after I confronted Kimberly with it. The Ian party detail is one of those things that on its own might seem small, but in context it's like the Exhibit A that prosecutors put up on the screen and the whole jury leans forward. Because look at the logistics involved. Nora sat down, planned a catered party, made a list of tasks, reached out to people individually, asked for $50 per person, coordinated decorations. For a man she's been dating for 4 years, that is effort. That is intentional, organized effort for someone who is not even blood. And this same family looked at their own son's birthday and couldn't even produce a text message. That's not forgetfulness, that's a hierarchy. And they've got it laminated and posted on the fridge right where his report card never went. And then Kimberly's response when she gets confronted, keeping score in a family is toxic. I need everybody to understand something about that phrase. People who say keeping score is toxic are always the ones running up the tab. Always. Nobody who gives equally is scared of the scoreboard. You know who hates receipts? People who've been stealing. And she called being low maintenance a compliment. We never had to worry about you. Right. Because he was downstairs fixing your water heater at 20 years old so you could worry about Nora's dorm room decor instead. That's not low maintenance. That's a son who raised himself while you raised your favorite. Update 2. Okay, Reddit. Buckle up because this is the update where everything went sideways in 4 directions at once. Shout out to everyone who told me to stay the course and not let Kimberly guilt me into backing down. Because she tried hard. So my uncle called me back that Friday. When my grandmother wrote her will, the house was not supposed to go solely to Kimberly. My grandmother's original intention, discussed with her lawyer and my uncle before she got sick, was that the house would go to Kimberly, with the understanding that both grandchildren would benefit from it. Not legally binding in the will itself. The will just said Kimberly gets the property. But Grandma told multiple family members she expected her grandchildren to have some stake in it. My uncle brought this up to Kimberly after the funeral, and Kimberly told him she would handle it. She never mentioned it to me. Not once in 14 years. I am not saying Kimberly broke any law. The will gave her the house, period. But she took my grandmother's expressed wishes, buried them, let me pay into the property for 3 years like a boarder, and never mentioned Grandma wanted me connected to that house at all. She took my labor and my money while knowing her own mother wanted it different. I confronted Kimberly the following Wednesday. Drove over after work, Damien was still at his job. Nora was not there. I sat at the kitchen table and told her what my uncle shared. I laid it out calmly and told her I wanted to hear her explain why she never said anything. Kimberly did not deny it. She did not try to say my uncle was lying. She told me Grandma was old and sentimental and did not understand how property works. That 2 names on a house creates legal headaches. And she made a practical decision. She told me I had been living there basically rent-free, which was a LI since I was paying property taxes. Then she said something I will carry with me for a long time. She told me Nora had been talking about wanting the house eventually when they downsized, and it would not make sense to complicate things with my involvement, because Nora and Ian were planning to start a family and needed the space more. So my grandmother wanted me included. Kimberly hit it. I paid into the house for 3 years. And the plan was to hand it to Nora and Ian because they needed it more. Because Nora's future was the only future that mattered in this family. I asked if Damien knew about Grandma's wishes. She told me he knew but agreed with her decision. Both my parents sat on this for 14 years and chose to cut me out because it was more convenient for Nora's life plan. I called my uncle again and told him everything. He was genuinely upset because this was his mother's legacy and his sister dismissed it like nothing. He told me he still had handwritten letters from Grandma where she talked about both grandchildren and the house. He offered to send me copies and I said yes immediately. While all this was happening, a separate situation exploded. Ian texted Candace. He got her number off Nora's phone and messaged her on a Thursday night asking why I had been acting hostile toward the family. Candace showed me the messages right away. Ian was telling her that Nora was upset, Kimberly was stressed, and my behavior was creating tension during what should be a happy time because Nora and Ian had just gotten engaged and the family was supposed to be celebrating. Engaged. Nobody told me. Not a text, not a call. I found out because Ian was messaging my girlfriend to complain about my attitude. So now I had the house situation, the grandmother's hidden wishes, the engagement I was excluded from, and Ian going behind my back to pressure Candace into getting me to fall in line. 4 pressure points all hitting simultaneously, and Nora had not reached out to me directly once. She was sending Ian, letting Kimberly handle it, treating the situation like I was a maintenance issue to be managed. I made 2 decisions that week. First, I was going to formally request reimbursement for every dollar I put into that house. Not through a lawyer yet, just a written request with documentation sent to both parents, making clear I expected compensation for 3 years of tax contributions and repair costs that increased their property value. Second was about the engagement and what I planned to do with the grandmother's letters at the family gathering. Nora was planning for the following weekend to announce the engagement to extended family. Walking away is what they trained me to do. Walking away is what quiet people do. I am done being quiet. The grandmother detail broke something in me a little bit, honestly. Because here's a woman on her deathbed writing letters about how she was worried about her grandson because she could see that her own daughter wasn't giving him enough. She saw the pattern from the outside, identified it, and tried to build a safety net from beyond the grave. And Kimberly dismantled it before the ink was dry. She took her dying mother's wish for her most vulnerable grandchild and filed it under inconvenient for Nora's 5-year plan. And then she had the audacity to call it practical. Like, yeah, it is practical. If you view one of your children as a person and the other one as a line item you're trying to write off. And Damien knew. 14 years of knowing and saying nothing. That man has made a career out of silence. And the one person who inherited that trait from him got punished for it. Meanwhile, Ian, is out here texting Candace like he's the family's crisis management PR firm. A man who has been in this family for 4 years contributed exactly $0 to that house and has the nerve to tell the guy who rebuilt the plumbing that he is the problem. Ian is standing in a house held together by someone else's labor, wearing someone else's family name, telling that person to calm down. That takes a level of obliviousness that should be studied in a lab. And Nora won't even contact her own brother directly. She sends proxies. She sends Ian. She lets Kimberly handle it. Because in her mind, he's not a relationship to manage, he's a situation to contain. She treats her brother like a PR crisis and her boyfriend like family. And nobody in that house sees the irony. Final update. Everything landed. My uncle flew in Friday before the engagement party. We met at a diner near his hotel and he brought the letters. 3 handwritten from my grandmother, all from the year before she passed. 2 mentioned wanting the house to be a safety net for both grandchildren. 1 said she worried about me because Kimberly did not give me enough attention and she hoped the house would make sure I always had a place. Reading my dead grandmother's handwriting about worrying for me because she could see what my own mother was doing. That locked every decision I had been building toward into place. We talked for 2 hours. He was personally angry because this was his mother's legacy being disrespected. We agreed on Saturday. He would attend the party and bring up Grandma's wishes in front of extended family. I would arrive separately with my documentation. Saturday came. Party at my parents' house. About 30 people, Nora showing off the ring. My uncle texted me updates. Around 8, he brought it up naturally, mentioned how good the house looked, said Mom would be proud, then asked Kimberly in front of 2 cousins how things were going, with making sure both grandkids were connected to the property like Mom wanted. Kimberly tried to redirect. My uncle held firm, and asked directly whether she had ever discussed Grandma's wishes with me. Kimberly told him this was not the time. He told her she was right. It should have been discussed 14 years ago, and mentioned the letters were with him. Kimberly texted me to call off my uncle. Damien called twice. Nora called once. I did not respond. I drove over and walked through the front door around 8:30. Half the guests were pretending nothing was happening. The kitchen was where it was all going down. My uncle standing with the letters on the counter. Kimberly arguing about airing family business in public. I walked to the counter and put a folder down. Itemized reimbursement request. 3 years of property tax payments with bank transfers. Receipts for the water heater, fence, bathroom tile, labor hours at fair rate. Total just over $19,000. I told Kimberly and Damien I was requesting reimbursement for contributions to a property I was led to believe would benefit me, and I expected a response within 30 days, or I would consult a lawyer. Kimberly told me I was ungrateful, and family does not operate on invoices. I told her family also does not bury a dying woman's wishes for 14 years. She argued Grandma did not understand property law, and her decision was practical. I told her practical for who? Because it was not practical for the son paying taxes on someone else's asset while being treated like hired help. She told me I was always welcome, and I was twisting things. I told her being welcome and being valued are not the same, and she knew the difference because she made sure Nora got one and I got the other. Damien said we should handle this privately. I told him we had 14 years of private and it resulted in me not being invited to my own birthday, while Ian got a catered party. Private was where they buried Grandma's wishes and planned to hand the house to Nora without telling me. Private was their tool for keeping me quiet. Nora told me I was intentionally ruining her engagement because I could not stand seeing her happy. I told her I did not care about her engagement. I cared about the fact that she collected from this family her entire adult life while I built everything alone. And the next time she called me forgettable, she should remember who kept this house standing while she picked out furniture on their credit. Ian told me to leave. I told him a man who texts someone else's girlfriend behind their back to manage a situation should sit this one out, and that he was standing in a house he contributed nothing to while telling the person who rebuilt its plumbing to get out. I told Kimberly and Damien 30 days. Then I left. The 31 calls came that Thursday. Kimberly left voicemails swinging between begging and screaming that I was destroying the family. Damien asked me to come talk. Nora messaged on every platform saying I humiliated her, and that extended family was now calling about the house and Grandma's wishes. My uncle told me 2 cousins contacted Kimberly, directly demanding to know why she never honored what their aunt wanted. They spent 34 years calling me forgettable. They said quiet people do not need attention. They trained me to disappear. I showed up, I brought receipts, and I am not picking up. Every single line this man delivered in that kitchen was a surgical strike. No yelling, no crying, no table flipping. Just 14 years of documentation and a dead woman's handwriting doing the talking. And every single response from that family was textbook. Kimberly says, family doesn't operate on invoices. Well, it also doesn't operate on invisible children paying your property taxes while you plan the favorite one's inheritance. Damien says, let's handle this privately. Brother, you have been handling things privately for 14 years, and your version of private is a soundproof room where you bury inconvenient truths. Nora says, you're ruining my engagement. No, your engagement got ruined by being held in a house built on lies. And maybe if you'd sent your own brother a text about it instead of letting him find out through Ian's complaint messages to his girlfriend, the timing wouldn't have been so unfortunate. And Ian, oh Ian, told the man who literally rebuilt the plumbing to leave. The confidence on this man is architectural. He is load-bearing audacity in human form,